Hello AstonMTB fans, welcome to this video which is an Ask Me Anything about this Nicolai Nucleon Supre drive bike. I asked Instagram for 10 questions from followers. I'll check back in about 10 minutes and I'd had 17 questions. So we'll answer 17 questions. First one from Trail Farmer. I know this guy has a Nicolai G1 and lives in near Morzine, Châtel. What's better, Nucleon compared to a G1? Well, for a lot of reasons, I would still go for a G1. The G1's been my long-standing top best production mountain bike that I would recommend to people for 90% of riding anything except full-on downhill or full-on cross-country. Nicolai G1, best all-round mountain bike. For a few reasons, which I won't go into all of them here, I prefer the G1. It's simpler, it's got better mud clearance, mud clearing, it's lighter if that's important. Yeah, just a simpler bike overall, which is something I like, simplicity. Question number 2 from Matthias. Matthias was my mechanic here a couple of years ago at the farm. Is it better than a Sur-Ron? Well, I know Matt loved the Sur-Ron and I love the Sur-Ron. If you've got €2,000 to spend and you have a bit of land or some land where you can ride an electric Sur-Ron legally, I would 100% take the Sur-Ron. Yeah, I bought one used a few years ago for €2,000. We've done about 2,000 kilometers on it in total. All I've had is a couple of punctures, oiled the chain, and I did snap the drive belt once. But I've spent about less than €200 on that bike, and I've done, a couple of thousand kilometers on it. I've also got a KTM electric freeride, which I bought used for €3,000 on Marketplace. And yeah, the electric motorbike, if you just got half an hour or an hour to go riding, if you don't want to spend 12.5 grand on a bike like this, I would definitely recommend a Sur-Ron. Bloody good fun, really good fun. Question 3, Tommy Carlini. How does this drivetrain compare to a gearbox drivetrain like the Pinion? Pros and cons. I'm going to write an article about this, going into much more depths in the future. And I have just got the Pinion Smart Shift with the electric shifting, which is really good. But the basic pros and cons compared to a gearbox are most of the parts, or half of the parts on this, are easy to source and change. The Shimano parts. If you have a problem with the custom lal-drive parts, which is very unlikely because they're very well packaged, that can be a difficulty to find spare parts. This still gets muddy and dirty and has chain angle issues and just the general cleaning and maintenance of a derailleur, which you don't have with the Pinion gearbox. I serviced a Pinion gearbox on my gravel bike last week, which my next door neighbour has just ridden from here to Santiago de Compostela, and that's done, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 kilometres. Never touched it. And then just before he went on the trip, I changed the oil, which took less than 3 minutes the first time I did it. So easy change. So compared to a gearbox, more maintenance, the usual drivetrain things to adjust, limit screws, cable tension, all that stuff, which I've never touched on the Pinion. And the Pinion, you've also got much better unsprung mass ratio because it's all stuck into a little box on the main frame instead of being on the rear axle. And it's just a smaller, less complicated system overall. It's bolted on with 6 bolts and bolted off. And in fact, I've got one here. So yeah, if you look at all this stuff, all these wheels, all that stuff on that bike, on the Pinion, is condensed into this really pretty small box here. You've got a super lightweight wheel. You've got a chain in a perfectly straight line, which means it needs less oiling, less cleaning. It lasts a lot longer. So yeah, much smaller package. Oiled and lubricated all the time. You can't hit it on anything. You don't have to clean it. It's fantastic. And now, Smart Shift review coming soon. Very impressed so far. Question 4, Kaya Drew. I hope I pronounced that correctly. The front end, 180mm travel fork and the bar stem combo of the tall Rulesman stem and the SQ Lab high-rise 45mm handlebar. What does the bar height come to from the ground? I just measured this. It is 114 centimetres, 114 centimetres, so pretty high, but nothing crazy. So you can go ahead, Kaya, and compare that to the front end of your bike. Mat edge, could it possibly be made into an e-bike with a CYC Photon motor kit? Now, I don't know what that CYC Photon motor kit is, but I'm imagining it's an aftermarket e-bike motor that you can bolt to a bike. I'm guessing it'd be very difficult on this bike because there's a lot of stuff going on. My pinion bike would definitely go on very easily, or the steel derailleur version of the same bike that would go on really easy onto there. Connor Waniness, how do you like the Supre versus pinion transmission? So I've already answered that. Personally, I'm going to go for the pinion, especially with the Smart Shift. Just overall, if you're not worried about that little bit of efficiency loss, you just want to go mountain biking, you don't want to clean your bike too much, you just want to meet your mates, go for a ride, I'm going to choose the pinion personally. Matteo, does it wheelie? Yeah, it does actually. I'm not much of a wheelie king anymore in my old age, but yeah, I think it's a 460 chainstay and quite a high front end. So yeah, you can still wheelie it, no problem. I'm not sure what question we're at now, about question 7 or 8. No kicks on the carpet. My question's not about the Super Drive, but what is so special about the stem compared to a normal stem, 35 to 45 millimeters? How does it feel in comparison? So this is an 18 millimeter reach stem, which just feels more direct. It brings your hands back closer to the steering axis through the center of the steerer tube. You basically get more twitchy steering with a shorter stem, which makes it less stable. But if you've got a really slack head angle, big wheel, short offset, this bike has got the offset reducing headset as well. So it's a 40mm offset on a 29. You got so much stability from the wheelbase, the head angle, the offset. You can then have a shorter stem, so you get more sensitive steering. It also gives you a more direct feeling to like push onto the front wheel, and the front end of this bike is absolutely exceptional going into corners, and front end feel is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Next question, Marcus Nesbitt. Is it worth it versus a gearbox and a standard transmission? How easy is it to work on and adjust things on it? Well, the normal adjustments of the high and low limit screws and the cable tension are exactly like a normal derailleur, and you can reach everything from here pretty easily and just adjust it as needs be. There is, which you can't see from here, inside this tube up to about here is a damper and a spring which damps this idler pulley. If you do have a problem with that, which I had to remove to replace the damper oil, which you can read all about in the written review, that's quite hard. I had to take off the cranks, the shock, rear wheel, and then you can squeeze out the damper tube, so that's a bit awkward to get to, but you shouldn't ever need to touch that. So compared to normal gears, it's pretty similar really. You should never really need to touch the damper. Compared to a pinion, I've had multiple pinions and done thousands and thousands of kilometers on them. The pinion, I've never touched. There isn't a limit screw. You don't need to change the cable tension. You don't need to do anything, it just works. And every 10,000 kilometers, you need to do an oil change, which I said previously took about 3 minutes. So yeah, the Supre Drive is pretty easy to work on, or very easy to work on overall. Johannes Nilsson, have you tried an oval chainring? If so, how does it perform with one? I haven't tried an oval chainring, and it would take some working out how to orientate the chainring to work properly with the idler wheel, because the ovality of an oval chainring needs to match the exit point of the chain from the first chainring tooth. So that'll be could be in a strange position on this bike. But no, I haven't tried one. Jules, I'm 180 centimetres. Will the bike fit me when I'll win it? Confident. I like his style. And good luck to anyone who's trying to win this bike. How much does it weigh? And thanks for the quality reviews as usual. So I just weighed this before I came up here. Exactly like this with the pedals, it was 18.53 kilos, which is 41.01 pounds in old money. So pretty heavy, but it's got all pretty heavy stuff. Alloy bar, well, all alloy parts. It does have carbon rims, which are pretty normal weight, comparable to an aluminium rim. It's got the dropper post, the Aenomaly switch grade, big rotors, powerful brakes, super gravity tyres. Yeah, pretty heavy bike, 41 pounds. And that was weighed with the pedals installed. Spuds Customs. How do you think it would do in a British winter? I see lots of extra wheels to fill with mud. Yeah, I did mention this in the first part of the written review of this bike. There's a lot going on around here, a lot of space to collect mud. There's a lot of machining out on the back of these dropouts, and also more in the middle of the swing arm. There's a lot of holes machined out of there to save weight. Obviously it hasn't worked because it weighs 41 pounds, but they've tried to save weight. And there's a lot of holes for mud to get caught in. And yeah, there's a lot of chain, wheels to collect mud. And then also down here into this shock cradle here, loads of space to get mud. Definitely wouldn't be my first choice for living in the UK. The G1, for example, is a much sort of simpler, cleaner design. And yeah, I would definitely take the G1 for English winter. Nicely on this bike, the same as the G1 and all Nicolai bikes, they've got double sealed bearings. So the bearing caps on each side of the bearings have an extra O-ring seal. So you've got the cartridge bearing seal plus an extra set of O-rings on every bearing. And I've tried this in the past, had a G1 for months and months and months, rode it in the mud, jet washed it, cleaned it. You take the bearing caps off and there's still perfectly fresh grease inside. So the bearings on this bike will be fine in the mud, but yeah, you're going to collect a lot of mud in there around the shock. So not my number one choice for muddy conditions. Free Ride Fox, how hard would you recommend this bike? Well, I'd recommend tickets to win this bike extremely hard as f. I'd recommend you buying tickets so hard, it's unbelievable. But I'll still recommend it overall. Obviously it's a custom build, so I started off in a very good position with some really good parts, some parts that I'm used to, and it cost 12.5 grand, so the brakes are amazing, the suspension's amazing, the wheels have been fantastic, one at dropper post, really good, Aenomaly switch grade, really good, Hope cranks and BB, fantastic. Overall, it handles amazingly, it absolutely plows through bumps, it holds a really good line, turns really well. And the shifting has worked mostly great, but there are some issues to go and read about in the written review. It's not perfect, and it's been a bit annoying having to be like part of the sort of R&D prototyping process of another bike, so that's been a bit of a annoyance throughout really, and it's delayed this review by months and months and months. But now it's working pretty good, and yeah, it's absolutely amazing bike really. I'm nitpicking when it comes to these little problems, but it's an absolute beast, look at it. And nicely, Nicolai have offered, and they're offering this to all Nucleon owners. If you've got a Supre drive gear system on your bike, Nicolai are offering a free replacement to change to the UDH, Universal Derailleur Hanger version of this bike. So, and this applies to the winner of this bike. If you win this and you don't like the Supre drive, you can then exchange the parts and put a SRAM transmission or any gears that use a Universal Derailleur Hanger mount. It uses a different swing arm, but the rest of the bike's exactly the same, so easy. Rob G 301 rides, any negative effects of the ultra long chain? I believe the chain's just a normal length. I haven't checked it, but I believe it's just a full length Shimano XT chain, so not really any longer than a normal chain, and no negative effects. The chain hasn't come off once, doesn't jammed, and just requires normal cleaning and maintenance like any other chain. So no negative effects. It's also really quiet as well when you're going through rough stuff. There's no chain slap or noticeable noise from the rear. Chris Mackin, previous competition winner, he actually won the same fork and shock as this bike sometime last year. How is the shifting under power? Again, you need to go and read the full Supre drive review on my website. You can shift under power and it will change, but it takes quite a long to shift, especially in the easier gears. When you press the lever to shift, it shifts, well, here, approximately here, and then the chain has to go all the way around until it gets to here before it actually changes. So you can't really stamp, well you can, but it doesn't work great. If you stamp full power during the change, you can get a bit of crunching or it can start to skip. And there are some problems with the gears shifting under changes or multiple changes. So you can shift, you can initiate the shift under power, and then during the shift, you can't put down full power, if that makes sense. And that only applies to going down into easier gears or up the cassette. Going up into harder gears, where the chain is travelling down the cassette, you don't really have that problem at all. And the further down the gears you go, the faster the shift becomes. And once you're about halfway or a little bit past halfway, it's pretty comparable to a normal gear. When you're in the easier gears, it's a bigger sprocket for the chain to travel around, and you're going much slower, and your cadence is generally quite slow. Or that's what I found when I've been testing. So when you do change into an easier gear, you've got a bit of a weight for it to get all the way around to the top of the cassette. Alistair Holmes, is it better than a G1? So I've already answered that. Not really. And why haven't the industry put the rear mech inboard previously? Will it become the new standard, or is it a cool gimmick? Unfortunately, I can't see this becoming a new standard. One, the first reason is the guy who's created this is a really nice guy. Chatted to him on the phone. He's come up with a really good idea, but he's just one bloke, proper lad in Canada making this. And he's up against Shimano, SRAM, Pinion, and then I guess you could also say Effie Gear, who are already established. Box, TRP, Microshift, Ingrid, there's no way this guy is going to have the power, or I can't see him having the power, for this to become a new standard. Partly because I think the new standard will be a proper gearbox system on all bikes. The chain and cassette system still has some issues. Plus the Supre drive, you basically need to design the whole back of the frame around the drivetrain, which is going to put off some manufacturers because it might not be possible with all frame designs. And so far for me it hasn't worked perfectly. If it was absolutely perfect, which I believe it does work perfectly on some of the bikes, then I could start having a conversation about it, challenging SRAM or Shimano, but in my experience it hasn't been perfect. Again, read the review for the full information on this. Sorry, Supre drive, you're not going to take over the world, unfortunately. But it is a cool idea, and it is overall a good system. Okay, that's it for the Ask Me Anything. If you have any more questions, put them in the comments below and I'll try to answer as many as possible. Head to my website, there's a load more review content. There is a build video of this bike, there's a first ride impression, there's a written review of the bike, there's a written review of the Supre drive, there's a review of the fork, there's a review of the brakes, there should be a review of the wheels coming soon, and there's also a review of the Aenomaly and the SQ Lab bars, stem and grips from a long time ago. So yeah, go and read all that review content. Let me know if you have any other questions, and yeah, go and buy a competition ticket to win this bike. Like all my reviews, I buy all these products. I bought all this stuff at full price and it costs a lot of money. So I'm trying to do independent reviews, give you the best truth that I can from my testing, and then make the money back by selling the bike in the competition. At the moment, there's only 203 tickets sold for this bike, so I'm heading for a massive financial loss. So go and buy a ticket, finishes on the 30th of April, and you can support independent bike reviews. Thanks to everyone who's bought a ticket so far and supported in the past. And good luck to whoever's going to be the lucky winner picked out of the hat next week. Thanks everyone.